God.
Rock to the rhythm, rock to the rhythm right now and dance.
Happy Wednesday. I'm out here with my friend Boawen, aka Bo Can Rap, or Bo Can't Rap.
I don't go by. I just go by Boawen now.
Just by Boawen. Anyways, we're heading out to our, well, actually his favorite restaurant, Pita.
You know, there's not that much in Pleasant Hill, but there's good thrift stores, and there's very mediocre Mediterranean food that just seems to hit the spot every time. So
That is true. Yeah, Pleasant Hill is kind of like the grandiose of like suburbia town. A little thing about Pleasant Hill, I've been living here for about close to 10 years now, and honestly, it's the same as it was 10 years ago. You know, we just have like strip malls literally a block from each other. Demographics, predominantly senior citizens and international student. So yeah, let's
I fell asleep with you describing your city, man.
I gotta find a better way to like up this up. It's weird because like I have to get into like my vlogging voice, which is kind of weird because I'm not used to it yet. And then there's like my normal voice, right? Like when I tone it down. So when I'm doing like vlogging voice, I have to assume that I'm having like these multiple conversations with people.
Yeah.
Which technically it's probably like only 20 people right now at this point.
No, it's like Brandon's regular speaking voice, and then like his rapping voice.
Yeah.
His rapping voice is like all slick and like kind of cool, like the cool nasally sounding, you know?
And you rappers have a Cosby, y'all don't ever say shit. I'm the best rapper on this big ass spaceship.
Yeah.
Not to say that his regular voice isn't cool or anything, but
He does
his
have
rapping
like,
voice is like really sick.
I'll put a link to the subscription or description. Brandon's a friend of mine, a friend of ours, and he goes by Brando Cristobal. He's a rapper based in the Bay Area.
Wait, hold on, how do I get there?
Oh,
Actually, went straight right.
You're just gonna go straight.
Alright.
Dope sound, great friend. Yeah, check him out. I'll put a SoundCloud link into the description box. Enough said. Let's go grab some pita. Hella hungry. It's like 12, and this is probably gonna be
12, it's freaking 1.
So technically, we're not gonna get pita. I think we're gonna head out to Ross, one of Bowen's favorite places to shop at.
It's not my favorite place. But I got these babies for like 20 bucks at Ross, so.
What is that? Is that the Nikes?
Cortez, man.
Ooh.
Y'all know. Go check out these new Steph Currys, man. Oh, the new Steph Curry feelers. These look like Steph Curry's, man. Like exactly.
Dude, Steph Curry shoes
Them
are clean. Like literally, they're just like nothing on it other than.
Because nobody wants to wear them. That's how they stay clean.
So we just got a pita in this huge bag. On a scale of 1 to 10, Bowen, how excited are you about this?
15.
Damn. So I was telling about Bowen about this new TV show on Netflix called Stranger Things. And one of the things I like about Stranger Things is the soundtrack.
Strange. Oh.
It's strange in terms of like paranormal, but the soundtrack is awesome. I believe it's by these group called Time Cop 1983. They utilize a lot of synth and electronic devices from the 80s, so it definitely has that sound. We're talking about Latigra. What were we talking about Latigra?
Because I mentioned that one of my coworkers used to work at a radio station, and then I was talking to her, and she and I said I listen to indie music, but the indie music that she listened to was a lot older, so she started talking about Latigra. See, I don't even remember their names. Like, I think one of the bandmates, one of her first names is Julia, and I think she formed another band, and they recently put out a project.
Right.
So that's where we were.
Yeah, that was like me. I think in 2007. I was really big into a lot of. I don't even know what to categorize them. Like Latigra would kind of be like
It's punk rock.
It's punk rock, but it's like a different genre.
It's like
punk
dance
rock.
pop punk rock.
Right, but like there's a lot of like, just like women empowerment undertones.
Right. It's like the Cat Power era, kind of, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I was listening to a lot of Cat Power at the time. I don't know. I think I just like kind of wanted to not listen to a lot of
artists.
I don't think I was like consciously not wanting to listen to male artists. I think I was just attracted to a lot of female artists who had a sound that was very unique. You know, a lot of like very empowerment sound to them. Like Cat Power to me, she could be very melodic in her tones, but she also has like this very raw. Oh, I know why. I was really into Tao with the Get Down, Stay Down.
That old?
Tao Wing.
Tao and the Stay Down, Get Down?
So when I first listened to her, it was like early 2007.
Oh, I had no idea. I just recently found out about her.
She just has like a very rawness sound to her vocals. And so I wanted to find a lot of artists that kind of had that same sound to her. So Cat Power was one of them, La Tigra, and then like coincidentally, a lot of musicians I listen to just so happens to be a lot of these indie female artists.
So these are all kind of like older bands that didn't necessarily put out music in 2007, right? Like who was big in 2007? I'm trying to remember.
In 2007, I think in 2007 I was listening to a lot of like Modest Mouse. A lot of
oh, okay, yeah, I was listening to like Jack's Mannequin, Modest Mouse,
right?
Like dare I say hello goodbye.
So in 2007 I wasn't really listening to hip-hop. I think I might have dabbled a little bit into Madlib,
okay,
and Pete Rock, but
so more you like more of the production at that time.
Exactly, yeah, so more of the jazzy hip-hop. Who else? This is like pre-Imaginary Dragon.
See, you always bring that up yourself. Like I never have to bring that up. You just embarrass yourself with that.
Inside joke. So when Boawen first came over to my place and I was showing him my vinyl collection, and he was actually impressed until like he reached the 10th vinyl in my collection. So like, which you saw like The Doors, Led Zeppelins, a lot of classic rock.
It's a good vinyl collection, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you just decided to get Imaginary Dragons because that fits in with Miles Davis and freaking The Doors and Radiohead and stuff.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Okay, so, little forewarning, this is not a skate video. Instead, I want to do a little bit something different. Today, we're actually here with my friend, Boawen. Boawen has his own podcast called Redefinition. I think you're in 10th, 11th episode in so far?
I don't know, like 14.
14 episodes.
Actually, let me double check this
so far. Why don't you talk a little bit about your podcast?
Yeah, I mean, so Redefinition is really essentially a series of conversations about people in different moments of their lives, and essentially a recap of everything that they've learned so far and what their experiences have really taught about their life philosophies. So at this point, like the first episode we talked to Vince, and at that time he was, he's actively involved in Instagram, but at the time that I talked to him back in January, he was involved even more. So kind of recapping what that journey looked like, the type of community that he's met, and where he envisions sort of his photography going forward. And I've spoken to architects and calligraphers and other people at this point, so it's been really awesome to kind of see where their journeys have taken them, and it all starts from an idea, and a lot of common elements are found in each conversation, right? Overcoming fear and overcoming kind of self-doubt.
How can we find more about your podcast?
Yeah, I mean, you can find Redefinition on SoundCloud at just Redefinition, or you can look up Redefinition on iTunes.
Cool. Awesome. So check it out. It's on iTunes, and you try to update it probably every 2 weeks or so, or whenever you get a new project coming in. Yeah,
it's been honestly a little bit slow lately. I think it's, summer's just an interesting time with the nature of my own work, but it's about once a month at this point.
Cool. So yeah, earlier today we were talking a little bit about, so there's a lot of current things that's going through my head right now, like nursing school transition, family issues that's happening with the recent passing of my grandma, and it's hard to kind of like take these different scenarios that's going on in your head, and really how do you have that sense of autonomy over all these different elements mentally that's happening. And so Boawen, mentioned a lot about, correct me if I'm saying this wrong, Stoicism? Stoicism. So I've dabbled a little bit about Stoicism, but I actually want to hear more from your perspective, and maybe you can give like a brief description of what that is to you.
Yeah, and I mean, forewarning, I'm not like super stoic or anything. I think it's something that I've heard a lot in my own kind of podcast research through a lot of interviews by Tim Ferriss. If you listen to like The Art of Charm, The Art of Manliness, sometimes they'll talk to people who are really involved in Stoicism. So, whatever I'm explaining is essentially what I've taken out from those conversations. But Stoicism to me, and what I understand, is essentially learning to remove yourself from your emotions, right? And being able to see things for how they are rather than you attaching your emotions to it. And that essentially means, right, like, say you're very angry at somebody, if you're emotionally invested in that sort of argument, the first type of reaction you're going to do is like yell potentially, right? Or you're going to throw a fit. But learning to see that reaction, right? Like, let's say I had asked Vince to pick up something for me and he forgot, and rather than yelling at him, I look and say, okay, well, my emotions aside, what's going on in his life? Maybe there's a lot of turbulent things going on in his life right at the moment, and that was just not a priority for him. So removing that kind of anger from that and understanding that this is the place that he's in right now, I can say, okay, that's not a problem. But then going forward from that, it's not just, remove your emotions and then move forward, but it's also, a lot of business people apply it so that they can develop action plans, help people to, I'm completely like, let's cut this definition out because it's...
No, I think that makes a lot of sense to me, because I'm trying to think of a daily scenario where Stoicism might be useful. And I'm thinking, like, let's say I'm in a car, right? And every light has been a red light. And it would be easy for me to just get really heated about a small trivial thing like that, or just like get completely pissed off when a BMW driver cuts me off. I mean, that seems to be like a lot of trend that happens to me a lot, like just Beamers just be cutting me off. And my first initial reaction would just be like, I would mutter something like profanity in the car as a way of like letting out that steam. But every time I do that, I never really come out with a sense of satisfaction. I felt like I was being completely consumed by emotions, So I think what you said just now is like that makes a lot of sense. I start to think about like, how can I apply this to my daily life situation?
One of the things that Stoics really consider is the fact that like a lot of the emotions that you encounter throughout your day are all familiar and fleeting moments. And what that means is that you've experienced these emotions before. And if it's something that you haven't experienced before, like let's say you break up from your first relationship, that's a whole set of emotions that you're just unprepared to deal with. But once you get through it and you understand that this is like the grieving process, you go through that, the set of emotions, the idea is that you learn more about yourself, you learn how to handle that kind of negative situation, so that when it comes again, you're more prepared for it, you know how to encounter it, so that way you can bounce back a lot more mentally, right?
Right, absolutely. And I started thinking about, for someone who's pursuing nursing, there's going to be many scenarios where you're in a very high stressful, emotional type of environment. You'll probably be encountering patients who get really sick, terminal illness patient who dies in a daily basis. And as a healthcare provider, how do you learn to control those emotions? I mean, does one get desensitized over time, or does one get really good at like compartmentalize these emotions, and then when the time is appropriate, you start to unleash these emotions so it doesn't get bottled up and affect your daily life situation? And is that what Stoicism trying to teach you? Is it more of a compartmentalize, or just learning to sort of, are you putting like the shield over you? Like, how do you deal with that kind of situation?
I mean, I think it's easy as I think we were talking about this a little bit earlier, but for people to look at Stoics as like robots, because the idea is like I'm removing myself from the emotions in order to deal with my situation. But I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think it's what you said. It's understanding the situation. I guess compartmentalize is like a way to kind of say, this is the situation, so I'm kind of going in that direction of how I handled it previously, right? And understanding what I did wrong so that I can ultimately adjust and make the appropriate improvements there. But when you're talking about that, the first example that popped to my mind was, did you ever watch Scrubs?
Yeah,
I'm sure you watched Scrubs,
some of the episodes, yeah.
Did you ever see that episode with Dr. Kelso? Because, he's kind of an asshole, he's kind of a dick, but there's that one episode where the focus is on him and even though he has to make all these really like heavy decisions, and a lot of it oftentimes goes to like, I need to do what's right for the hospital. And then at the end, it shows him closing the door to his office, right? This entire time, he just has that dick face. He looks very punchable, and like nobody likes him. But he closes the door of his office, and he like lets out a big sigh, and you can see him become human again. But that's because at that moment, he has to play that role of like, I'm the head practitioner, whatever person. I'm running this hospital,
Right.
And like if I didn't make those decisions, then we wouldn't even have a hospital to make with. And people can hate me. Because that's fine. I know what my role is. My role is to provide for this hospital, whether or not, and that oftentimes has to do with like making hard decisions. So, again, like that's what you're saying, right? Like if you're, I think as a nurse, as a doctor, you're dealing consistently with like really shitty situations, and that also to reference Scrubs, there's that episode with Zach Braff, JD. He gets really invested in his patients a lot, and I think his, he kind of forced Dr. Kelso. Wow, what was the doctor's name again? Do you remember?
I think I was more of a...
Dr. Cox.
Okay. I was more of a Grey's Anatomy watcher than Scrubs.
Yeah, just
keep
exposing yourself. When Dr. Cox kind of just told him, like, hey, rookie, like, you can't be so emotionally... I think it was Dr. Cox, but he keeps telling him, like, look, we have to be able to keep going in our job because there's too many people that depend on us. And it's not to say that you just kind of brush people off, but you learn to deal with the situation so that you can still give the care you... Because ultimately, like, the world doesn't necessarily just revolve around them because a lot of people depend on you.
Right. Just you mentioning about Scrubs sort of reminded me of this viral photo that was released in the public, I believe, in 2014. Or is it 2015? I forgot. But it was a recent photo of I believe it was a doctor. He was in the middle of... He was like on a bridge or on a traffic area, like literally a block away from the hospital. And it's just him sort of like kneeling down and crying on the floor after losing a patient. And those are photos that we don't necessarily see a lot. It's just like the humanities behind doctors, because yes, doctors do play this very significant role where they have to kind of they have like this very stoicism, paternal or maternal for the nurses, archetype that because they're so professional in their job, and oftentimes any hint of emotion maybe seem as weak, which is not entirely true. It's just how you display that emotion at that particular time. To be a good caretaker, you have to have these feelings. It's just a matter of like, how do you display it and when?
The one really good example I can think of is like mothers. And I think back to like my own mother. She dealt with a lot on her plate, right? She's a social worker. She's still a social worker, and it's like working full time when we were kids, picking me up from daycare after school, and then making a full meal for me and my brother, and then taking me to soccer practice afterwards, then helping me with math homework afterwards. And it's something that as a kid, we all think about like, this was expected. But then it's like, as I'm getting older, and now like looking at the relationships that parents have with their kids, you realize just how much effort that it requires. And even as a kid, and I think back to it even now, like if I call my mom because I'm dealing with something, her mentality isn't like, hold on, like let me pencil you into my calendar. It's just like, no, I'm gonna drop everything because that's my son, that's who I love. And they always have like they embody this role of their number one priority. And so I guess the point I'm trying to make is like, I think in trying to embody the spirit of a Stoic, like you also dictate what it is that you prioritize in your life. You are able to kind of release the emotions appropriately. You realize that time is it's the only I don't know what the word is, but we're all going to die essentially.
Right. It's something. It's not a tangible thing. You're always playing chase with time.
Right. And time is such a
fleeting moment. Or
I don't want to keep saying that, but time is it's the only thing that we can't ever buy, right? And and a lot of Stoicism talks about the fact that like we're not saying this is a negative thing, but it's just the truth. It's absolute that you'll never be able to get time back.
Right.
So would you rather spend that time bitching to somebody about the way somebody insulted you at work, about like the relationship that you have with your shitty boss? Would you rather like spend your time idly and not doing something that you really loved, or would you rather make best use of your time, try to impact people based off what you see your life purpose to, right? And like, you know, if you want to be a great nurse, you think about how your actions can impact them, how you can influence them as it fits to your purpose in life. I think
that kind of brings me up this metaphor. I was listening to this podcast about briefly touching topics on Stoicism, and the thing they talk about was like, picture yourself swimming in this ocean with all these waves that's happening, right? And you can choose to go against the current. You can choose to go against time or go against what nature is intended for you. And, you know, inevitably you're going to be drifted back towards the direction of the wave, or you can choose to just kind of coast through that wave and not deny your fate. I think that was a very powerful imagery to kind of grasp onto of what Stoicism, or at least that angle of Stoicism, is that don't try to fight it. I don't know if that makes any sense, but like...
I kind of get what you're trying to say. It's more like the things that happen in your life, they happened.
Right.
And you can choose to act really negatively towards it.
Right.
Or you can, this is going to sound really cheesy, and I don't mean to say it that way, but you can look for like the silver lining in it, which is in a sense like trying to understand what the potential lesson to it.
Right, absolutely. I'm trying to tie this back into skateboarding, of how Stoicism can be applicable to skateboarding. Maybe,
I mean, it depends like what you're using skateboarding for, right?
So for me, skateboarding is that it's kind of synonymous to, as cheesy as it sounds, it's synonymous to life. Like skateboarding can be compared to life, because in life you fail numerous of times. With skateboarding, there's like a huge learning curve. Like for me to do an ollie, or for me to push or coast on the board, think about, like, if you just look back at some of the old videos of me just trying to ollie, I've failed 95% of the time, and then in those 5% I'd probably land an ollie. And so I think it has taught me that skaters are sort of addicted to this idea of perseverance. If I were to go back as a teenager and learn how to skate, I probably wouldn't last for more than 2 or 3 days, just because there's no discipline in it. But major props to those who are skating well young, major props to those who are actually skating in their 30s to 40s to 50s. So I think that's what really taught me about skateboarding, is that you kind of set yourself like these little micro goals, and once you reach it, you know, then you want to kind of take it up to the next step further. And I think that can be applied to any types of hobby or craft that people are recently learning. But that's probably one of the reasons why I'm taking up skateboarding, is that I set myself goals, and when I do accomplishment, there's kind of like this rush of endorphin, of just like a sense of huge accomplishment.
Yeah, no, I get that. And I think for me, like, that's been rock climbing for me lately.
Okay.
Because it's freaking tough, you know? And like, I think one of the things that rock climbing has really taught me is patience, being in the moment, and understanding that you're probably a lot more capable and stronger than you are, right? There's like so many moments, and maybe this happens to you when you skate, when you just don't think you have it in you to, you know, make the last trick.
Right.
You stick it out for a couple more minutes, and then you land it, and you're just like, where did this come from? You know, I've been dying, I've been struggling. I couldn't nail this pop shove it like 30 minutes ago, you know?
Right.
Same thing with rock climbing, you know? Sometimes I'll be climbing a set. I just keep falling in this one spot. And you just think like, dude, I don't know how people keep this up. Like, I'm fucking exhausted.
Right.
And then you go for one more try, and then you reach up, and then you grab it. And instead of falling, you're still hanging there. You're just like, where's this burst of energy coming from? And then you kind of think back to it, or I think back to it, and I say, you know, well, at this moment, I kind of readjusted my feet, I positioned my hand a little bit differently. So, you know, you're right that you can apply this kind of mentality to anything, anything that forces you to tweak a little bit to see like a big goal achieved. That's important.
Right. Another thing I want to point out is that not only is skateboarding or rock climbing or any types of new hobby is great because you're setting yourself little micro goals, but there's also a sense of just sort of blocking everything that's around you in terms of mentally. The thing I notice about skateboarding, I'm sure it applies for rock climbing, is that it kind of helps to quiet the mind a little bit. When you find yourself just grasping on a different thing in your mind when you're doing skateboarding or rock climbing, you're easily distracted, right? But as you get better mentally, you're able to just sort of focus more on the moment. So for me with skateboarding, I kind of tune out a little bit and just kind of develop like this nice quiet mind moment, and then I get an ollie, or I'm able to push, or I'm able to coast, or I'm able to do pop shove it. So I guess I could kind of apply to Stoicism as like learning to kind of filter out these distraction a little bit more. Like you can quiet out the distraction and just really focus on the task at hand.
I think the distinction though isn't that you're applying like Stoicism to the act of skateboarding. It's more you're applying Stoicism to like your active thoughts. And in those moments, I think it's more like in those moments when you feel like your self-doubt is just through the roof, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And you just think that like, gosh, everybody's looking at me. These freaking 15-year-olds are like doing like kick flips off this 5-stair well,
right?
And you think like, you know, what am I doing? This is stupid. But then you kind of revisit again your goal. Like, oh, why did I start skateboarding again? Oh yeah, it's because like in this moment, like it's been helping me learn this, and I want to continue to do this, so I'm just gonna do it. So I think that's where you apply Stoicism to like any acts. You don't necessarily apply it to like the act itself, but you apply it to your mentality.
To the mentality, exactly. So do you have any books recommendations for those who are interested in Stoicism to start reading?
Yeah, I mean, this book right here, it was recommended so much by like Ryan Holiday and Tim Ferriss. Ryan Holiday is actually, and Tim Ferriss, I think those are the two guys that really got me interested in Stoicism and applying it to my own life. And they always reference this book, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. And so this is essentially kind of like a personal diary of who was arguably the most powerful man in the world during his reign as emperor. And it wasn't meant to be seen by anybody, but it just talks a lot about how he navigates his kingdom and a lot of the life lessons that he's learned from, like taking on the tasks of a king. So there's just a lot of great wisdom in here. It's fucking dense. Like I'm not gonna like this little book took me like a solid month to get through just because it's just really hard to read. But I think I've read it about 3 times now, and each time that I read it, I'm going back and I'm underlining a lot more. There's just a lot of great reminders in here every day. And I'll read it right here. It says, "Begin the morning by saying to yourself, I shall meet with the busybody, the ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, unsocial. All these things happen to them by reason of their ignorance of what is good and evil." And so that's it's like a morning declaration that Stoics often start the day with. And it's getting into the mindset that throughout your day, inevitably something's going to go wrong. Somebody's going to cut you off on your way to work. Somebody's going to take your seat at BART. Somebody that you're working with on a project is going to be lagging, and they're a bad teammate to work with. Whatever the situation is, you know how to handle it because you've already, in a sense, mentally prepared yourself to handle it, right? You're dealing with the ungrateful, you're dealing with the deceitful that Marcus Aurelius talks about. And so that's, just even practicing that every morning has been, I don't do it every morning, but when I was first reading it, I was trying to wake up and I was trying to remind myself. And it is something that I go back to from time to time, but it's something that just really flips a switch into your mindset when you understand that, like, yeah, life is too short to get mad at these really trivial things in the long scheme of things. These are all short-term kind of like stupid shit.
Like, for a better word, just thinking positive, because the moment your mind kind of shifts or like latches onto something that's negative. So, for instance, let's say you wake up in the morning, you fall down on your floor or something because you tripped, and then you get super heated and angry. And then like that kind of snowballs into a series of misfortunate events. And because it kind of snowballs through the misfortunate events, you literally just have a shitty day, you get nothing accomplished, you're completely consumed by your emotions. Things just will never go according to plan because you're so clouded by your emotion. It just clouds your rational judgment.